home? Is it the place where you were born, where you grew up, where your family's from? Or is it where you live now, if that's different? Or both? What makes it feel, look, sound, smell, and taste like home to you? What defines the boundaries of the place you call home? Is it your language, your accent, your culture, food, music, a sense of humor, a people with a common history, a land, borders? I moved to this country in 1989 to be married. I have 3 grown-up children who have British nationality like their father. I still have my Belgian passport. I was free to settle and work here under the legislation of the European Union, which guarantees the freedom of movement of people within its borders. Well, for now anyway. I made a home here. But in the last few years, maybe since my divorce, I've been wondering where my home really is, where I really belong. Especially after the Brexit vote, because it does feel a little different to be a foreigner in this country now. It's just a feeling, a perception, because nothing has changed in my external circumstances, and I have no idea how this will affect my life here, if at all. When the theme of this conference was announced, pushing boundaries, I wondered which meaning of the word boundary was intended. Every speaker today will interpret that theme in their own interesting way, but I decided to look up the word in a dictionary. Okay, I Googled it. Boundary, a line which marks the limits of an area, a dividing line, often used in the plural, boundaries, synonym, borders. In other words, borders divide us and separate us. They highlight our differences. They shape part of who we are as people. I am different from the people who live on the other side of the border. For instance, to use cliches about Belgian people, but they do apply to me. Belgians love chocolate and beer and chips served in paper cones with mayonnaise on top. We have a self-deprecating sense of humor and a very distinct accent. The phrase pushing boundaries brought to my mind the images that I had seen on the television of the thousands of people crowned in little boats crossing the sea, fleeing the violence of the war in Syria, seeking safety inside new borders, yet being met with more violence at times, with prejudice and fear. Maybe understandably, because the media has been portraying this humanitarian crisis in quite opposite ways. And comments on social media range from solidarity and compassion to hatred and racism. I felt that those people were being labeled freeloaders, benefit scroungers, cockroaches, and even terms such as refugee and asylum seekers, which actually have a legal definition, seem to acquire a negative connotation. Of course, we need words to describe situations and the people affected by them. But I couldn't relate to any of these words, which I felt were stripping these people of their individuality, their dignity, and their story. Doesn't history shout a warning to us against such generalizations, which are used to justify treating and judging a whole group of people with reference only to that label? So what defines the boundaries of your perception? We all see reality in our own way, and many factors influence how we each construct our map of the world to make sense of it. But words are very powerful to shape our perception. I respect that your perception might be different from mine, but today I'd like to share with you what has shaped, challenged, and pushed the boundaries of mine. The boundaries of my perception were first challenged when I noticed a plaque on the Leas here in Folkestone, commemorating the arrival of 100,000 Belgian refugees at the beginning of the First World War. And being Belgian myself, this really struck a chord. It made me think that had I lived 100 years ago, I might have been one of those destitute, terror-stricken refugees, those are the words on the plaque, fleeing the war, crossing the sea, hoping to find safety and a welcome here. And of course, the Belgians were very warmly welcomed. Thank you. Folkestone is proud of this heritage. To this day, there is a huge painting which hangs proudly in the town hall by an artist called Frido Fransoni. It depicts the arrival of the first Belgian refugees at the harbour, welcomed by the mayor and other officials. Then the boundaries of my perception and my experience were pushed back even further when I made a personal connection with a Syrian refugee, a young man the same age as my son. He contacted me through Facebook one day in the summer of 2015, and so I blocked his account because I don't connect with strangers on social media, and that is certainly the advice I've always given my children. But then I listened to the whisper of my intuition, and I answered him, and I invited him to tell me his story when I realized he was a young refugee recently arrived in Europe, looking for connection. He had seen my name on the Facebook page of a charity where I'd left a comment in solidarity with refugees, and so he thought I might be sympathetic. Like so many thousands, after leaving Syria, he had crossed the sea from Turkey into Greece, traveled through Europe, partly on foot, before finally reaching Germany, where he now lives. So today, it is with his permission that I'd like to share his story with you. So allow me to tell you about my friend, Abdullah Urfali, aged 23, from Aleppo, Syria. Brought up by a loving family, the eldest with his twin brother of 7 brothers and sisters. His father farmed the land and ran a prosperous greengrocer's business. Abdullah was a student of economics at the University of Aleppo. He had friends, a social life, lectures to attend, homework, fun, and dreams and ambition. We began to correspond with each other regularly, and I soon realized that Abdullah valued this connection, and so did I. Able to share his experience, his difficulties as a refugee in Germany, and his concern for the safety of his family left behind in Syria, who had not been able to afford the €4,000 a head for the sea passage. In December 2015, Abdullah's fears were realized when his twin brother was injured in an air raid. This prompted the family to finally leave and seek refuge in a United Nations camp at the Turkish border, by now closed. That same month, December 2015, on my way to visiting friends of mine in Bavaria, I went to see Abdullah in his camp, a disused military base outside a village in the former East Germany. When I arrived there, I met another young man with whom Abdullah shared a room. I was welcomed with a simple meal, prepared and served with pride, and with flatbread and hummus and coriander, which I was amazed they'd found locally. We spoke of our families, our friends, our countries. It is a meeting I shall never forget for the rest of my life. For in that moment, for a moment, in that soulless concrete building, there were no refugees, no foreigner, only people, maybe a little out of their way, but just connecting, sharing, chatting. They made me feel at home. I went to see Abdullah again twice, on one occasion with my partner, in a different part of Germany where Abdullah now has a little flat. He's attending language school, he's learning German, and he's already passed his first level exam. In time, he's hoping to go back to university and resume his studies to become a computer engineer. He goes to the gym, he plays football, and has made a few German friends in the school he attends. I met other refugees, and again was so warmly welcomed by them. We shared an amazing meal, which had been prepared by a young man who'd been a chef in Aleppo. He made kapsa, which I understand is a popular dish in Arab countries, served with rice, colorful vegetables, and amazing spices. It was delicious. I was really touched by their hospitality. They made me feel at home. Last summer, Abdullah was a guest in my mother's house in Belgium for a few days, and I showed him around my home city of Brussels. We met up with a friend of mine and had dinner in a Syrian restaurant in the capital. You see, our friendship has freed Abdullah from the label and the stereotype of refugee and allowed him to be just a fellow human being. I didn't meet a refugee. I met a brave young man, resilient, talented, with a deep trauma, a lovely sense of humor, an appetite for life, and in need of friends and a safe place to call home for now. Yet crossing that sea made him and thousands of others lose their identity to become a number, a statistic, an economic problem, even perceived as a threat by some. When we label people and don't see the person behind the label, we deny them their true identity. Our own identity is compromised, for we fail to appreciate who they are and who we are as compassionate human beings. So where is home? There is a saying, home is where the heart is. But I'd like to turn it around and say, where the heart is, there is home. I've come to the conclusion that my home is where my heart connects with people I love, and that has nothing to do with geography or national borders. In July 2014, German astronaut Alexander Gerst was on board the International Space Station. He said that one of the things he could not see from up there in space were borders. So I challenge you to push the boundaries of your perception if you have a negative image of refugees. And here is an idea. Seek out refugees in your community. Go and meet them. Free them from the label and the stereotypes given to them by the media. Make your own experience. Ask them their story. And let them meet you. Share your story with them. What's your story? When we share our stories with people, we deeply connect with them, for we are wired for connection. We are wired for community. We are wired for love. We live in a world that is fast changing, don't we? We have a unique opportunity to think of new ways of living together in our diverse communities and redefine the boundaries of the places we call home. Neither Abdullah nor I live in the country of our birth for very different reasons. But whenever we meet and wherever we meet, we are home with each other. I'd like to leave you with a photograph of my new Syrian friends. Abdullah is the second from the left. Thank you for listening.